Hey, what's up? This is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com. Thanks for watching this video. I'm going to be sharing some music production tips while recreating the beat you can hear in Ariana Grande's Positions. So let me go ahead and show you the final product. So let's start with the drums. So I've got a drum rack loaded in Ableton Live with some sounds here. And I simply double clicked in my session view, the clip slot, and this is going to give us a 1-bar loop to work with. If I wanted to extend that to a 2-bar loop, I simply hit the duplicate loop button, and now I have 2 bars to work with. So I'm going back to this first one here, where we have our kick and clap pattern. Let's take a listen. Cool, now what I wanna do is layer that clap with a rim knock that we have here. So what I'm gonna do is just click that whole row. You see the little moving dotted lines. That means that that whole row of sounds is being selected, and hold the Option key and drag up over to the rim knock. Now we're gonna nudge the rim knock slightly, and the reason why I'm doing this is so that you can hear a little bit of that attack on the rim knock a little bit behind the clap, and that's gonna give it some more texture. So with the whole row of the rim knock selected, let's go ahead and hit the Command key and nudge that a little further back from the grid. All right, and now let's go ahead and draw our hi-hat pattern. So I'm gonna switch to hitting the letter B on my computer keyboard and just drag. That's a little too much. So I'm gonna hit Command 2 to open the grid for another subdivision instead of 16th note, 8th notes. Now let's do a little bit of balancing here. So opening up my drum rack, I'm gonna go ahead and balance the elements that we're currently using right now. And what I mean balance is just kind of blend or balance out the overall volume of each sound. So I'll start with lowering the kick down and the hi-hats. You notice that the hi-hat is way lower than all the other elements, and that's usually because the higher end percussion or percussion on the higher end frequency, that's got a lot of high frequency response on there, they tend to just stick out immediately out in the mix as opposed to the things that are on the low end, maybe the kick or basses or things like that. They take longer they're felt, but they take longer to be heard. So hi-hats tend to just the high end tend to just pop right out of the mix. So I'm gonna bring it down a lot more, and just really to my personal preference. All right, now I can also hear a cricket that's going on throughout the thing, and it almost reminds me of the good old Timberland days and the Aaliyah records where we'd have the cricket as a rhythmic element. So I'm just gonna go to my search finder here, type in cricket, see what comes up on their all samples. There we go. Got a nice little cricket there. So I'll click and drag that into our drum rack. And now let's go ahead and create the same pattern that we're hearing with the hi-hat with the cricket. And let's just solo that. So a lot of things happening here. What I want to do is in the cricket, I'm going to go from one shot to classic. And that's going to allow me to adjust the sustain. But we notice we have a little bit of some artifact in there. So I'm going to hit the filter that's on board the sampler, switch it to high pass. I'm only letting the highs pass and eliminate some of that low end. So we just get the cricket there in presence. Now let's hear what it sounds like. I might want to go to the controls and pitch this up a little bit. Or we can have it there and enable our pitch envelope. And what this is going to do is going to create an envelope in which the pitch is adjusted. So you can see here that the pitch will go up. Right here, I have it by 6 semitones. So it's going to go up 6 semitones and then drop back down to the normal pitch. And we lower the attack. And this is going to give a little bit more of an attack to the sound. Right? You can hear that happening. So if I wanted more attack, I can use a pitch envelope to do that, or more presence on the attack of the sound. That's fine there. I'll just pitch it at 6 and do a little bit of spread so it spreads out stereo image, and then see what that sounds like. So I'm going to use the EQ to shape the tone a little bit, compressor to just give it overall dynamic and just tighten up the overall sound, and saturation. So start with our EQ, EQ 8. And just kind of clean this up a little bit and brighten up this part there. And we have the glue compressor here. And I will just leave the attack. I don't want it to be too quick. And we'll leave the release around 4. You could hear the thump of the kick come through. So I'll put the soft clip on and raise this. And then we'll go ahead and add some saturation. So saturator, drive about 5 dB, and let's go back. Now with the drums in place, I want to focus on the main violin pluck riff that we hear throughout the song. And so for this, I'm going to be using Reason's rack plugin. Now, normally Reason can be a standalone DAW, but you can also now use it inside another DAW as a plugin. I'm super excited when that happened because I started off using Reason way back in the day, and I've always loved the effects and the sounds that are inside Reason. So for this, I'm going to go over here to Reason Studios, choose Reason Rack Plugin, and click and drag that over. And then we're going to use the friction modeled strings. And the reason why I'm going here is because when I started messing with it, immediately the texture and the uniqueness of this plugin, I thought, yeah, this will get really close to that sound. So friction is not necessarily just, string samples like maybe other libraries that you might come across, but yet they're focusing more on the modeling of the strings. So there's a lot of cool things that you can tweak and that you wouldn't normally get from string patches on other string libraries. So just listening to the riff, let's go ahead and focus on the notes. So we definitely want to go with a pluck. So back into the plugin here, going from bowing to pluck. Sounds good so far. Let's dial out the reverb and do a couple of tweaking. So I want to decay the string a little bit, so it's a short pluck. And maybe just kind of tweak a little bit with the resonator body. Maybe just a little bit of the width. I'm just gonna go ahead and start tweaking some knobs until I get it to where I really like where it's sounding. I love this little doubling here because then it multiplies the performance like as if you had not just one person plucking, but four. You can adjust the timing. So snap that down and maybe bring it to two. This will widen it up a little bit. Maybe use the EQ to bring up some more high gain. Okay, and turn on the harmonics. That's cool. We'll take that off. We don't want just the harmonics to be heard. Cool thing is, I'm gonna open up another one here. So I'll go to instruments. We'll look for another friction modeled strings. Put that there. And for this one, we'll just choose a different resonating body. And in this case, a cello. And go to pluck as well. And take the reverb off. So the texture is really unique and it's cool. And that's why my mind immediately gravitated to friction because when I started messing with it, I'm like, yeah, yeah, I love that kind of texture that this particular plugin has. So heading over to the effects, I want to widen this up a little bit with some chorus. So I'll go to the quartet chorus ensemble and just put that between the two because it's going to be affecting the top friction, as you can see here. Let's get a little bit of noise. Just bring a little bit of noise. All right. And then back into our Ableton Live DAW. It's cool because I can treat Reason now as just a regular plugin. Do a little bit of EQing and see what that sounds like with the drums. All right, now I want to head back to the drums, but this time I'm going to be incorporating a loop. And we're going to be doing a couple cool techniques here that's going to add really nice texture to the drums. So we've got a loop here. Let me just solo that. Now it's more of a top EDM house loop. And a lot of times in my productions, I like to cross pollinate. I'll take loops from different types of genres and mix them with genres that they're really not meant for, such as this right here. We've got this minimal house loop type of thing going on. And what I want to do is first duplicate it so it's playing twice as slow. So I'm going to hit the ×2 button here. And then change the warping mode from beats to repitch. So you got that nice pitch down texture to these drums. Next, what I want to do is have a gate plugin. So I'm going to drag and drop gate from the audio effects folder. And we're going to have the drum rack trigger this loop. So every time the drum rack is heard, that's when you'll hear this loop. So go over here and open up the sidechain. And let's just choose drum rack. Now let's hear it in context with the drum rack. So what I'm going to need to do is adjust the release knob so that once the gate is open and we hear the sound, it'll take a while to close so we can still hear that loop kind of threshing around. All right, so I'm going to use an EQ to just... All right. So that's cool there. Now let's just add a couple more things here. So I want to add a shaker and a tambourine to this as well. So we've added a tambourine here. And gonna go ahead and put a egg shaker in as well. And those tambourine and those shakers really do great to just add more in that high-end texture and rhythm here with the drums. So without it, we have... Now what I'd like to do is group all of these percussive elements, the loops that we've just added and the drum rack as well. we'll go ahead and group them. And here I'm going to use the drum bus plugin. But I'm going to scale it all the way down. I'm going to go to dry and wet and just do a little bit of this and start to slowly creep it in. Now let's go ahead and implement our 808. So here I've got an instrument rack that I've put together. It's an 808 sample, followed by some amp simulation to add some harmonic distortion. Got the drum bus on there, just adding a little bit more crunch and body, and then an EQ to just shave the overall tone. And so here we have the 808. Now, what's important here is also note selection and octave and register. So you notice that we go from this D3 to this A2, which is really low. If we went a whole octave higher to the A3, it makes sense, but it's going to resonate differently than that octave lower A. So you'll get a lot more resonance there. So you might need to make a decision sometimes on which octave to choose. Yes, technically the A2 is a lot lower, but it doesn't resonate as much as that higher octave A. But just kind of following what I'm hearing in the reference, we've got that A2 going the lower octave here. Now let's focus on the acoustic guitar that we hear throughout the chorus. Now, the best option would be having someone to actually play the acoustic, record it, and fly it into the chorus. But we don't have that now, so I'm going to try my best to replicate that using the Native Instruments picked acoustic guitar plugin. So here we have the plugin. Now, the picked acoustic allows you to play the melody line as opposed to the strummed acoustic will just play strummed patterns according to the chords that you're playing. So let me go ahead and focus on the melody. Here are the notes. So velocity goes a long way here as well. I can click on the notes here, and by holding the command key, I can increase or decrease the velocity here, or you can just go to the bottom and adjust it as well. Now, if I have that note strung at a very strong velocity, it just stands out a lot more. So I want to be sure that I'm balancing out each note and creating more of a dynamic performance with these notes, messing with the velocity. So that one could just go up a little bit more. And now we have that there. I'm going to give a little bit of reverb. And my reverb here on the return track is an EQ to take away some low end and high end, and just a basic big room preset with the Ableton Live reverb. I'm also going to send some reverb to the drums. That's going to help create some nice space and dimension. So let's hear this all together. Now I've got another MIDI track loaded with another instance of Contact Native Instruments, but this one has strummed acoustic because this is just going to have the strummed pattern. So I'm using Strum Acoustic 2 set to the default handmade A, and let's just go ahead and play the chords. Just to have that tucked in the back kind of will help fill up a little bit of the nuance that goes between the guitar melody and the strings. And now we're going to put some ambient chords in the back, and this is really going to help glue everything together. For this, I'm going to use Ableton Live's wavetable. You could use any two more oscillator synth you might have in your DAW. And it's really dull. So it's not a bright type of synth. So that means we're going to focus on using our sine wave as the main source of our sound. So here I'm going to solo this. Let me just listen to the chords. All right. Well, what we got to do is have a longer release of those notes. So I'm going to go to my amp envelope, release them a little bit longer, put the release up a little more, filter this out just to kind of dull out the sound. Give a little bit of drive, and then turn the unison on here. And now let's add some sound designing here. So I'm going to use the delay plugin here in Ableton Live. Set this to quarter note delay. And want it to bounce back and forth from left and right. So I'll use the ping pong. And right after that, we'll use a reverb. Create some space. Bring out the decay time a little bit more. And then I want to filter all of that, the delay and the reverb, with a filter. Now to accent the beginning of the chorus, let's go ahead and put a crash cymbal heading back over to our drum rack. Going in here, bringing that down, and bring this all together and see what it sounds like now with everybody combined. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful and encouraging in any way. And if you're looking to get into music production, or maybe you've been producing music for a while, but you're not sure what your next step is, I want to point you over to beatacademy.com. It's where I provide resources to help you take your next step, but not just courses and resources. I'm also providing mentorship where I come alongside you and guide you through the process of achieving the goals that you want to reach with your music. So if you want more information about that and how you could really dive deep and get serious about producing the music you've always wanted to produce, then visit beatacademy.com. There's plenty of free resources there already, but you can also dive deeper and taking your next step forward with your music. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so that you can stay up to date with upcoming videos, hit the notification bell and do all that craziness, and I'll see you next time.